I never thought the man who married my daughter, the man I welcomed into our family, would be the one to try and steal everything from me. He thought he had me, a helpless old widow, an easy mark, but he had no idea. He'd just awoken a sleeping giant, a giant fueled by a legacy he could never have imagined, a giant that would eventually bring him to his knees and expose his darkness to the world. And believe me, what I tell you today is just the beginning of how I reclaimed my life, and then some. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. My name is Sylvia Hartley. For most of my 72 years, I've lived a quiet, contented life, dedicated to my family. My late husband Robert and I built a wonderful home, a sanctuary filled with love and laughter, raising our daughter Emma with values of integrity and kindness. Robert was a brilliant man, a quiet genius, who had worked tirelessly in financial services, building a comfortable life for us. After he passed just 3 years ago, I naturally retreated into a somewhat modest existence. I found solace in my garden, in community work, and in the memories of our life together. I carried my grief with dignity, but perhaps, in doing so, I painted a picture of vulnerability that would attract the very kind of predator Robert had always warned me about. The day Emma married Marcus Thornfield was supposed to be one of the happiest of my life. I remember the air in the grand ballroom was thick with the scent of lilies and new beginnings. Emma, radiant in her white gown, looked so incredibly happy, so utterly in love. My heart swelled with pride and a touch of melancholy, wishing Robert were there to see his little girl. But even amidst the joyous celebrations, a cold knot of unease began to form in my stomach. I was seated, quite deliberately, I now realize, at table 12, tucked away near the kitchen entrance. It was a subtle but effective way to ensure I wasn't at the main family table, to make me feel slightly out of place, slightly less significant. Marcus, even from a distance, seemed to glide through the room with an almost unnatural charm, shaking hands, laughing too loudly, his eyes constantly scanning, evaluating. He was a handsome man, impeccably dressed, with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, and a predatory glint that only I seemed to notice. It wasn't long before he approached my isolated table. He leaned in, his voice a smooth, practiced baritone, oozing false concern. "Sylvia, my dear mother-in-law," he began, taking my hand, his grip a little too firm, a little too prolonged. "I'm so sorry you've been tucked away back here. Emma and I were just saying how we need to have some meaningful conversations about your future. You know, with Robert gone, you're in such a vulnerable position. We want to make sure you're protected." The words were sweet, but the implication was a bitter pill. He wasn't offering help, he was staking a claim. He spoke of my assets and estate planning with a casual ease that made my skin crawl. It was clear as day. He saw not a grieving widow, but a target. A flicker of alarm, cold and sharp, went through me. My daughter had married a wolf. The following weeks were a slow, agonizing dance. Marcus became a constant presence, calling, visiting, always with Emma by his side, oblivious to the insidious undertones of his conversations. He'd bring over legal documents, usually during dinner, with Emma chattering happily in the background, making it difficult for me to object directly without causing a scene. He'd talk about consolidating my accounts, about setting up a robust financial plan to protect me from unscrupulous people. The papers he presented were always variations of power of attorney, giving him control over my investments, my property, my very life. Each time, I demurred, insisting I needed to consult my own lawyer, a fictitious one, of course, as Robert had always handled our affairs. I saw the flash of frustration in his eyes, brief but potent, whenever I pushed back. Emma, bless her naive heart, would just echo Marcus's sentiments. "Mom, he's just trying to help. You know how complicated these things can be." Her words were like daggers, reminding me of the wedge he was already driving between us. But what Marcus didn't know, what Emma didn't know, what almost no one knew, was that Robert had spent the last decade of his life meticulously preparing for this exact scenario. My seemingly modest life was a carefully constructed facade. Robert had anticipated that a grieving widow especially one he loved so dearly, could become a target. He had hidden a vast fortune, not just for my security, but as a, quote, battle fund, as he called it, should I ever need to fight. One evening, after Marcus's most aggressive attempt to get me to sign papers, he'd even brought a notary public to my house, claiming it was for my convenience. I knew it was time. I retired to Robert's study, a room I hadn't truly entered since his passing, not wanting to disturb its pristine memories. Beneath a loose floorboard, precisely where Robert had always told me a rainy day fund was kept, I found it. Not a few $100s, but a complex, intricately designed steel safe. My hands trembled as I entered the code Robert had given me years ago, a series of numbers tied to our wedding anniversary and Emma's birth date. Inside, it wasn't just cash. There were folders upon folders of documents. A single letter from Robert lay on top, his familiar, elegant handwriting. "My dearest Sylvia," it began. "If you are reading this, it means you need to be dangerous. Do not hesitate. I have prepared for everything. This is your arsenal." My eyes scanned the contents. An irrevocable trust fund, not for a few $100,000, but for a staggering $33 million. There were detailed instructions, contact information for a lawyer named Carol Peterson, a brilliant estate attorney Robert had secretly retained, and even surveillance equipment. Tiny, undetectable cameras, microphones, and a private investigator's contact. My Robert, my quiet, unassuming Robert, had been a strategic genius. He hadn't just protected me, he had armed me. In that moment, sitting on the floor of his study, surrounded by the tangible evidence of his enduring love and foresight, the grief I'd carried for years transformed into something else entirely. It was a cold, burning resolve. I was no longer a victim. I was a warrior, and Marcus Thornfield had just made the biggest mistake of his life. The next morning, I called Carol Peterson. Her voice, calm and professional, immediately put me at ease. "Sylvia, it's an honor to finally speak with you," she said, as if we'd known each other for years. "Robert prepared me thoroughly. He always said you were stronger than you knew, and that you would know when the time was right." With Carol, a plan began to take shape. My seemingly meek resistance had bought us time, and now, armed with Robert's meticulous preparations and Carol's legal expertise, we were going on the offensive. I learned that Marcus's charming persona hid a deep, insidious darkness. Carol and the private investigator Robert had lined up for me, a sharp woman named Elena Petrova, quickly uncovered his significant gambling debts and a disturbing pattern of elder fraud in other states. He preyed on vulnerable seniors, sweet-talking them out of their savings, leaving a trail of ruined lives. My daughter, my sweet Emma, was merely another pawn in his calculated game, a means to an end. It broke my heart, but it also solidified my resolve. I wouldn't just protect myself. I would dismantle him. We decided to set a trap. The recordings from Robert's surveillance equipment, now discreetly installed throughout my home, would be invaluable. Carol advised me to continue playing the part of the confused, easily swayed widow, but to occasionally drop hints, carefully chosen words that would make Marcus overconfident, believe he was winning. So during our next stage dinner, I sighed dramatically and said, "Oh, Marcus, these papers are just so overwhelming. Maybe you're right. Maybe I just need to sign them and get it over with. But I want to do it here, in my home, where I feel comfortable. Just us." His eyes, normally so calculating, gleamed with triumph. He swallowed the bait, hook, line, and sinker. The day of the signing arrived, crisp and clear, a stark contrast to the storm brewing within my house. I dressed simply, a soft cashmere sweater and my everyday pearls, wanting to appear as unassuming as possible. Every detail was meticulously planned. Hidden cameras were activated, recording his every move, every word. Federal agents, led by Agent Sarah Torres, a brilliant and fiercely dedicated woman, were discreetly positioned in a van down the street, ready to move in. Carol Peterson was monitoring the live feed from her office. Marcus arrived, radiating an almost palpable arrogance. He brought a briefcase, overflowing with documents, his smile broader than usual. "Sylvia, my dear, this is such a good decision," he purred, setting the papers on my dining table. "You'll be so much more secure. Emma and I will take such good care of everything." As he slid the pen across the table, my heart pounded, but my expression remained placid. "Before I sign, Marcus," I said, my voice soft, "I just have a few questions. Tell me, do your gambling debts at the Golden Dragon Casino usually run into the hundreds of thousands, or is that a new record?" The smile vanished from his face. His eyes narrowed, a cold reptilian stare. "What are you talking about, Sylvia? I don't gamble." "Oh, really?" I continued, still gentle. "Because the records I've seen, Marcus, tell a very different story. And tell me, how are things with William Thornfield, your uncle? Still running that little elder fraud ring out of Miami? I hear they've been quite successful, preying on other lonely widows, just like me. Is that where you learned your trade, Marcus?" His face went pale, then mottled with anger. The mask had completely fallen. You old hag, what have you done? Who told you this?" He lunged across the table, not physically at me, but towards the papers, as if to snatch them back, to erase the moment. That was their cue. The front door burst open. Agent Torres, flanked by 2 other agents, stormed in, their badges glinting. "Marcus Thornfield, you are under arrest for attempted elder fraud and conspiracy." The shock, the raw terror on his face, was a sight I will never forget. He tried to stammer, to deny, to argue, but the agents calmly read him his rights, securing him in handcuffs. As they led him away, his eyes met mine, filled with pure, undiluted hatred. But in that moment, for the first time in months, I felt truly safe, truly in control. The immediate fallout was swift and brutal for Marcus. News of his arrest spread like wildfire, exposing his carefully constructed life of lies. Emma was devastated. She came to my house, tears streaming down her face, a mix of horror, betrayal, and profound guilt. "Mom, how could I have been so blind? He was so convincing. I thought he loved me." It was a painful conversation, one filled with apologies and the slow, arduous process of her realizing the depths of his deception. She had seen the recordings, heard his admissions, seen the evidence of his other victims. It was too much to deny. Ultimately, Emma filed for divorce, severing all ties with the man who had so cruelly exploited her and her own mother. It was hard, but it was her path to healing. Meanwhile, Carol and Agent Torres began to unravel Marcus's entire criminal network. My initial case, bolstered by Robert's foresight and my recordings, was just the tip of the iceberg. We provided invaluable intelligence that led to the arrest of Marcus's uncle, William, and several other accomplices involved in a multi-state elder fraud operation that had swindled millions from vulnerable seniors. Marcus himself, facing overwhelming evidence, pleaded guilty to multiple counts of elder fraud and conspiracy. He received a substantial prison sentence, 18 years, though later reduced to 8 to 10 for cooperation, but his parole was denied after only 5 years due to his lack of genuine remorse. The Thornfield disaster, as it came to be known in criminal circles, became a cautionary tale, a stark warning against underestimating a seemingly helpless widow. But my journey didn't end with Marcus's conviction. Robert's battle fund, that $33 million irrevocable trust, was more than just a means to fight Marcus. It was a legacy that demanded a greater purpose. I decided to use every penny of it to combat elder fraud on a national scale. With Carol Peterson's legal acumen and Agent Torres's federal connections, we established the Robert Hartley Elder Fraud Victim Advocacy and Prosecution Program. It wasn't just about catching criminals. It was about preventing the crimes, supporting victims, and changing the laws. We funded a network of victim advocates, free legal aid clinics, and specialized federal prosecution units. We launched public awareness campaigns, teaching seniors how to identify scams and empowering them to protect themselves. My story, once a private anguish, became a public rallying cry. I gave speeches across the country, my voice clear and firm. Vulnerability, I would often say, is not a choice when you are targeted, but becoming a more dangerous predator than those who seek to harm you. That is a choice. We will no longer be silent. We will no longer be easy marks. The program grew exponentially. We helped hundreds, then thousands of victims reclaim their lost savings, their dignity, and their peace of mind. Asset forfeiture from convicted fraudsters provided a self-sustaining stream of funding, ensuring the program's longevity. There was even talk of the Hartley Act, federal legislation aimed at strengthening elder protection laws. My life, once quiet and focused on my family, transformed. I became a national figure, a formidable force against financial predators. The Thornfields, Marcus's haughty mother Patricia included, watched their family name and reputation crumble. Patricia, who had once dismissed me as that frumpy widow from Table 12, now avoided eye contact, her carefully constructed world shattered by her son's greed and my unexpected strength. Years passed. Emma, having divorced Marcus and healed from the trauma, moved back to our hometown. She found love again, this time with a kind, honest man, and became a fierce supporter of the Hartley program, often volunteering her time, her early naivete replaced by an unwavering resolve. She truly became her father's daughter, and mine. One crisp autumn day, I stood in the East Room of the White House, the Presidential Medal of Freedom gleaming against my dress. The president himself pinned it on me, acknowledging my transformation from a grieving widow to a national hero. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about justice, about honor, about fulfilling Robert's legacy and protecting countless others. I had reclaimed my life, and in doing so, I had helped so many others reclaim theirs. Robert's $33 million, once a hidden secret, was now a shining beacon of hope, forever ensuring that no other family would have to endure the betrayal and despair that Marcus Thornfield had tried to inflict on mine. I often think of Robert, of his foresight, his trust in me. He knew, long before I did, that I had the strength to be dangerous. And I was. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.